Okay, so we now are recording. Okay, it's a great pleasure that we welcome Rafał to our seminar today. Rafał is the founder of the Institute and Foundation for Daseinsanalysis and Existential Psychotherapy. He has been working as psychotherapist for over 20 years and holds an academic degree in psychology. Between 2002 and 2008, he completed an extensive postgraduate training in humanistic existential psychotherapy. Throughout his professional journey, he has also deeply engaged with psychoanalytic thought, especially between 2014 and 2018, and he continues to draw inspiration from philosophy. Today, the analysis is where he feels most at home, both in thinking and feeling. Rafał is an active member of Society for Existential Analysis, the American Daseinanalytic Institute, and the International Society for Ethical Psychology and Psychiatry. Outside the consulting room, he finds balance and energy through endurance in sports. He trains regularly for triathlons and practice boxing, disciplines that each in their own way bring him closer to the present, rhythm, and resilience. Today, he will be presenting the seminar Therapeutic, Eros, and Madness, the Praxis of Daseinsanalysis. Please, Rafał.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and also an honor. Do every one of you speak English?
I don't know if everyone speak, but they can sure understand.
Okay. So maybe I share my presentation. It's a form of a lecture and a video inside. So let me just read it, watch the video, maybe have a very short break for tea and something to drink or snack, and then some discussion. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, madness has always fascinated me, not as something to be tamed or cured, but as a profoundly human phenomenon that demands to be understood. Is it a rupture, a reordering? Eric Kurawski uses the expression being verrückt, displaced of existence, to describe it. Others have seen it as an inevitable, even necessary, stage in the soul's unfolding. Assuming madness is an existential wound, what facilitates healing it? In my opinion, it is love, but not love as sentiment, nor the sterile distance of clinical care. I mean therapeutic eros, of which Miles Groth and Charlotte Aigner have spoken and written beautifully. A love that dares to enter the other's world without fear or expectation. There is something both perilous and profound in this, because therapeutic eros does not seek to fix anything. It aims to be with. It is about meeting the other in their madness, holding them tenderly, not pulling them back towards so-called normality. It is in this space where madness and love touch that real transformation happens. From a Dasein-analytic point of view, as Tomasz Fazekas and Miles Groth taught me, we can begin to analyze madness more closely by examining which of the actualizations of crucial existentials have become mostly disturbed or distorted in the person's being in the world. Is there a collapse of temporality, a loss of spatial belonging, a rupture in being with or thrownness? Each existential disruption gives us clues not only to the nature of the wound, but also to how the person might be met. In this light, madness is not a clinical category, but a phenomenological event, a cry emerging from the breakdown of existential structures. And it is precisely here that therapeutic eros becomes most vital. It listens not to the symptoms, but to the silent scream of Dasein itself. Let me share why I chose the form of film review and analysis. Writing a design analytic film review allows us to illuminate the deeper existential structures at play within a character's world, revealing not only narrative developments, but also how being shows itself or becomes concealed in the unfolding of the story. Just as the psychoanalytic movement found richness and public relevance in writing psychoanalytic film analysis, design analysis too can benefit from this engagement with cinema. Film gives us access to attunements, moods, and raptures of meaning that echo real human experiences. By interpreting films through a design analytic lens, we can show how existential phenomena like throwness, attunement, being with, or the search for authenticity are not abstract concepts, but embodied realities. Moreover, this kind of work helps make design analysis more accessible, inviting both clinicians and lay people into a way of seeing that is not about theory, but about deep human truth. Few stories capture the phenomena of existential wound and madness better than Joker, a psychological thriller and character study directed by Todd Phillips and released in 2019. The film stars Joaquin Phoenix in the title role Arthur Fleck, with supporting performances by Robert De Niro as Murray Franklin, Zazie Beetz as Sophie, and Frances Conroy as Penny Fleck, Arthur's mother. The screenplay was written by Todd Phillips and Scott Silver, with cinematography by Lawrence Sher and music by Hildur, and the name I'm uncertain to pronounce, Gina Ditter, whose haunting score received critical acclaim. The film premiered at Venice Festival, where it won the Golden Lion, and Phoenix went on to win the Academy Award for Best Actor for his performance. Arthur's Fleck descent is not just personal, it is existential, a collapse in a world that refuses to see him. I will use his example to illustrate my thesis. Madness grows where there is no real recognition and love. If present, can change its course. In the sequel movie, Folie à Deux, his connection with Lady Gaga's Harley Quinn raises an even deeper question. What happens when madness meets love? Does it destroy or does it heal? And more importantly, what if Joker had found therapeutic Eros instead of energizing, hope-giving, but merely in therapeutic effect romance? What I will present will not be a theoretical analysis. It will be an invitation to rethink madness and embrace therapeutic Eros. Let me shortly present a plot of the movie with some commentary. I have divided the content into 10 chapters. Chapter 1, The Street and the System. At the beginning of the film, Arthur Fleck is working as a clown for hire in the streets of Gotham. While performing his job by advertising outside a store, a group of teenagers attacks him, steals his sign, and beats him mercilessly in an alley. He returns to work bruised and broken. At his social service appointment, therapy meeting, he attempts to speak about his struggles, only to find that his voice is dismissed. His uncontrollable cry laughter is met with indifference, as though he were already beyond explanation. Part of a dialogue. Is it just me, or is it getting crazier out there? I was wondering if I could ask the doctor to increase my medication. Arthur, you're on 7 different medications. Surely they must be doing something. I just don't want to feel so bad anymore. He discloses that he keeps a journal where he records his thoughts and sketches out ideas for jokes. He aspires to become a stand-up comedian. Among the entries, one line expresses his quiet despair. I just hope my death makes more sense than my life. From an existential perspective, this opening scene paints the initial signs of his Geworfenheit, thrownness. Arthur is thrown into a world that does not want him, does not see him, and does not care. His suffering is not just psychological, but ontological. There is nobody actualizing his being with, his Mitsein. There is nobody to hold him. He is utterly ungrounded, denied a place in shared existence. Gotham is not merely a city, but an oppressive horizon that denies him space to exist authentically. Chapter 2. The Bus and the Body That Betrays. On a bus home, Arthur tries to entertain a child, but is met with suspicion from his mother. When his uncontrollable laughter erupts, he hands her a card explaining his condition, a neurological disorder causing inappropriate laughter. She remains fearful and dismissive. Existentially, Arthur's body ceases to be his own. It does not serve him in reaching others, it alienates him. He is disembodied in the sense that his gestures no longer connect with the world. He is no longer capable of bodying forth, Leben. Chapter 3. Home and Fantasies of Being With. In the elevator, Arthur develops an immediate fascination with his neighbor, Sophie. He imagines a romantic relationship with her, including her presence at his stand-up performance. Later, it is revealed these encounters never occurred. Upon returning home, Arthur is seen caring for his mother, bringing her food and attending to her needs. She speaks admiringly of Thomas Wayne, insisting she once knew him and calling him a great man. As they watch the Murray Franklin show together, Arthur slips into a fantasy, imagining himself as a guest on the show, basking in Murray warmth and receiving the kind of paternal affection he's never known. And now a part of a dialogue. There is something special about you. I mean, I loved hearing what you had to say. It made my day. Thank you, Mary. You'll see all this, the lights, the show, the audience, all that stuff. I would give it all up in a heartbeat to have a kid like you, said Mary to Joker. These imagined relationships represent Arthur's longing for fulfilled being with, the essential relational dimension of Dasein. In a world where he receives no affirmation, he creates internal structures where love, intimacy, and admiration exist. These hallucinations are not pathology in the medical sense. They are ontological residue of unmet relational needs. These imagined moments show what he longs for, not success, but affirmation of existence. Chapter 4. Work and Killings. At work, Arthur is still recovering from the assault in the alley when his colleague Randall offers him a gun for protection. Arthur initially hesitates, reminding Randall that he's not supposed to have one, but the gesture is framed as friendship and survival. Soon after, Arthur is called in by his boss, Hoyt, who accuses him of losing the store sign, despite Arthur having been violently attacked while holding it. Hoyt threatens to dock his pay, showing no concern for the beating. Arthur's response is dissociated, a vacant smile, a mask he wears to survive in a world that refuses to recognize his pain. While performing at Children's Hospital, Arthur dances and entertains the young patients dressed in his clown costume. In the middle of his routine, the gun Randall gave him slips from his costume and falls to the floor. The moment is jarring. Laughter turns to silence. Though he tries to play it off, the damage is done. This accidental reveal marks a turning point. Not only does he lose his job, but the illusion of control begins to unravel. On the subway, Arthur is witnessing a woman being harassed by three businessmen. His laughter draws their attention and they beat him. This time, Arthur responds with violence, killing all three. Afterward, he escapes to the bathroom and dances slowly, ritualistically. This moment is pivotal. It marks the beginning of a shift from a fragmented, reactive self to a self that acts with agency. The dance signifies his return to the body, no longer passive, but expressive. The dance is deeply symbolic. For the first time, he moves with presence, as if he is re-entering his body with a new purpose. He is no longer Arthur. Joker is emerging. Chapter 5. Searching for the Father. Afterwards, Arthur comes home where in the news he hears Wayne speaking. What kind of coward would do something that cold-blooded? Someone who hides behind a mask, someone who is envious of those more fortunate than themselves, yet they're too scared to show their own face. And until those kind of people change for better, those of us who have made something out of our lives will always look at those who haven't as nothing but clowns. He goes to the therapy where he speaks frankly to his therapist. You don't listen to me, do you? I don't think you ever really hear me. You just ask the same questions every week. How's your job? Are you having any negative thoughts? All I have are negative thoughts, but you don't listen anyway. I said for my whole life, I didn't know even if I really existed, but I do, and people are starting to notice. On his way home, Arthur stops to perform stand-up comedy. The act goes terribly in reality, but in his fantasy, it's a triumph, ending with a perfect date with Sophie, a date that exists only in his imagination. Back at home, he discovers a letter written by his mother claiming that Thomas Wayne is his biological father. After a violent confrontation with her, Arthur decides to visit Wayne Manor, interacts with young Bruce, and later confronts Thomas Wayne at the theater. Wayne dismisses him and claims Arthur was adopted and his mother is delusional. Here is the part of their conversation. My name is Arthur. Penny Fleck is my mother. Jesus, you're the guy that came to my house yesterday? Yes. I'm sorry I just showed up, but my mother told me everything and I had to talk to you. Look, Paul, I'm not your father. What's wrong with you? Look at us. I think you are. Well, that's impossible because you're adopted and I've never slept with your mother. I wasn't adopted. What do you want from me? Money? No, I don't want. I wasn't adopted. Jesus, she never told you? Told me what? Your mother adopted you while she was working for us. That's not true. Why are you saying this? Then she was arrested and committed to Arkham State Hospital when you were just a little boy. Why are you saying this? I don't need you to tell me lies. I know it seems strange. I don't mean to make you uncomfortable. I don't know why everyone is so rude. I don't know why you are. I don't want anything from you. Maybe a little bit of warmth, maybe a hug, Dad. How about just a little bit of fucking decency? What is it with you people? You say that stuff about my mother? She's crazy. Joker starts to laugh. You think it's funny? Dad, it's me. Come on. Thomas Wayne punches him and says, "Touch my real son again and I'll fucking kill you." This chapter is a quest for origin. Joker wants to know where he came from, to place himself within a narrative of belonging. But the father figure, symbolic of grounding and authority, rejects him. The existential implication is devastating. He is not only unsupported, but also unplaceable. Chapter 6, The Arkham Files. Arthur steals his mother's medical records from Arkham State Hospital, where he discovers a devastating truth. He was adopted, abused, and his mother not only failed to protect him, but allowed the mistreatment. He uncovers evidence of disturbing cruelty inflicted upon both. Newspapers once ran headlines like "Home of Terror for Mother and Child." Among the files, he finds his mother's diagnosis, delusional psychosis, specifically the belief that Thomas Wayne was Arthur's father. Yet even this remains uncertain. Was it truly a delusion or a buried truth? After reading the files, Arthur collapses into a stairwell, laughing and crying at once. This is a moment of Entbergung, unconcealment. Truth, no matter how horrific, becomes visible. But this visibility does not heal, it wounds deeper. Temporality collapses. The past is a lie, the future is void. What remains is terrifying raw presence. Chapter 7. From Tragedy to Comedy. Arthur visits his mother in the hospital, and just before suffocating her with a pillow, he says, "You know how you used to tell me that my love was a condition, that there was something wrong with me? There isn't. That's real me." Penny, his mother, weakly, "Happy." He used to call him happy throughout his whole life. Happy. I haven't been happy 1 minute of my entire fucking life. I used to think my life was a tragedy, but now I realize it's a comedy. At the hospital, Arthur watches a segment on TV where Mary Franklin airs a clip of his humiliating performance at Pogo's pub, mocking his failed attempt at stand-up comedy. Later, at home, Arthur receives a phone call. Franklin's team is inviting him to the show. As the video has gone viral, Arthur begins preparing meticulously. He rehearses his entrance, practices his lines, and carefully applies his clown makeup. In his mind, the transformation is complete. He is no longer Arthur, but Joker. In the midst of this, Gary and Randall, former co-workers, arrive unexpectedly. Arthur brutally kills Randall, but spares Gary, quietly saying, "You were the only one who was ever kind to me." Killing his mother is not only symbolic of breaking ties with delusion, but also the end of his inherited narrative. The line, "I used to think my life was a tragedy, but now I realize it's a comedy," is existential reframing. He embraces the absurd not as despair, but as a creative posture. His being becomes performative and aesthetic. Joker is not a mask. It's a new mode of existing. When Arthur kills Randall and spares Gary, he is forming an ethics. Distorted, yes, but rooted in his own lived truth. Chapter 8. The Talk Show Execution. On live television, Arthur confesses to the subway murders. He denounces society's cruelty and its abandonment of people like him. Please listen carefully to his words. "I do not believe in anything. I killed those guys because they were awful. Everybody is awful these days. It's enough to make anyone crazy. I pass you every day and you don't notice me. You're awful, Mary, too, by playing my video, inviting me to this show. You just wanted to make fun of me. You're just like the rest of them. How about another joke, Mary? What do you get when you cross mentally ill loner with a society that abandons him and treats him like trash? I'll tell you what you get. You get what you fucking deserve. And he shoots Mary in the head. The act is horrifying, but within the existential frame, it's a final scream. A demand to be seen, heard, reckoned with. His violence is not directed at a person. It is directed at the symbolic order that erased him. The stage becomes his clearing, and his truth, however terrifying, is laid bare. Chapter 9: Riots and Recognition. As Galam erupts in riot, protesters wear clown masks and chant against the elite with signs, "We are all clowns." Arthur is rescued from police custody and celebrated by the mob. He stands atop a car, bleeding and triumphant. Society's own repressed suffering finds expression through Joker. He becomes a symbol, not of crime, but of breakdown. The social fabric tears. The crowd lifts him not because he is right, but because he is real. The mask now reveals what society has concealed: pain, abandonment, and rage. Chapter 10: Arkham Asylum. The film ends with Arthur in Arkham, speaking to a new therapist who seems just as removed as the first. But this time, Joker is no longer pleading. He laughs. You wouldn't get it. He has stepped beyond. Whether she lives or dies is irrelevant. Joker has ceased to seek connection through ordinary means. He has become an icon of the uncontained. He is no longer seeking understanding. He has embraced his solitude. His laugh, once a symptom, is now a mark of identity. He is a scream. He is a Daseinanalytic. And before we'll do a more careful examination of chosen existential, let's watch together some parts of the video. Roberto, I will share the screen.
Okay.
Stop it, you, bro. You're gonna be a clown. At least you can be a cool one. You know that, right? Come on, clown, let's go. You got time. Let's go. Stop there. Go. Let's go. Stop, clown. Get his ass up. Come on, it's not you can't do nothing.
Would you stop bothering my kid?
I wasn't bothering.
Just stop.
I was.
What, you think that's funny?
sorry. I have to.
But in all seriousness, I mean, these
I
guys
love you,
are-
Mary.
I love you too. Hey, Bobby, will you put the lights on? Who was that? Was that you? You want to stand up, please? Stand up. Please. Stand. What's your name?
Hi, Murray. Arthur.
Arthur.
My name's Arthur.
Oh, okay. Well, there's something special about you, Arthur. I could tell. Where you from?
I live right here in the city with my mother.
Okay, we got a big show tonight. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
That was great, Arthur. Thank you. I mean, I loved hearing what you had to say. It made my day.
Thanks, Murray. You see all this, the lights, the show, the audience, all that stuff. I'd give it all up in a heartbeat to have a kid like you.
My name is Arthur. Penny Fleck is my mother.
Jesus. You're the guy that came to my house yet.
Yes. I'm sorry. I just showed up. But my mother told me everything, and I had to talk to you.
Look, pal, I'm
Sure.
not your father. What's wrong with you?
Look at us. I think you are.
Well, that's impossible because you're adopted, and I never slept with your mother.
That's not
What do you want
adopted.
from me? Money?
No, I don't. I wasn't adopted.
Jesus, she never told you.
What?
Your mother adopted you while she was working for us.
That's not true. Why are you saying that?
And she was arrested and committed to Arkham State Hospital when you were just a little boy.
Why are you saying this? I don't need you to tell me lies. I know it seems strange. I don't mean to make you uncomfortable. I don't know why everyone is so rude. I don't know why you are. I don't want anything from you. Maybe a little bit of warmth. Maybe a hug, Dad. How about just a little bit of fucking decency? What is it with you people? You say that stuff to my mother?
She's crazy. You think this is funny?
Dad, it's me.
All right, it is Fleck, Penny Fleck. Let's see. Diagnosed by Dr. Benjamin Stoner. Oh, the patient suffers from delusional psychosis and narcissistic personality disorder. Was found guilty of endangering the welfare of her own child.
Right.
You said she's your mom? I'm sorry, man. Like I said, I can't release these records, you know, without proper forms. I get in trouble. Look, if you want to bring your mom in here to sign, that'll be much easier. But I can't let this go without her signature. Okay? Sorry.
Oh, man. Come on, man.
We went over this, Penny. You adopted him. We have all the paperwork right here.
always had that all made up. So it stayed our secret.
You also stood by when one of your boyfriends repeatedly abused your adopted son and battered you.
Have you seen what it's like out there, Murray? Do you ever actually leave the studio? Everybody just yells and screams at each other. Nobody's civil anymore. Nobody thinks what it's like to be the other guy. You think men like Thomas Wayne ever think what it's like to be someone like me? To be somebody but themselves? They don't.
Okay, thank you very much for watching this part. Now we will examine some chosen existentials. Tomasz Fazekas once noted that in the Daseinanalytic process, we must pay close attention to how a patient's existentials are being actualized. I will not explore all of them, but I have selected 4 that I believe are particularly significant in the life of Arthur Fleck and would be especially relevant in a Daseinanalytic therapy had such help ever been offered to him. Joker's thrownness. For Arthur Fleck, his actualization of thrownness is a particularly painful and devastating condition, shaping his existence with a relentless sense of abandonment and disorientation. He has been cast into a world over which he had no choice, a social, economic, and familial reality that constrains him from the beginning. He does not choose to be poor, mentally ill, or socially marginalized. He is thrown into these conditions and must now take responsibility for being, with almost no viable possibilities available to him. When Arthur Fleck, the future Joker, was born, Gotham City was already in a state of deep decay. It was a city unraveling from within, plagued by systematic corruption, stark economic inequality, rising crime, and institutional neglect. The social services were crumbling, the streets were littered with garbage due to an ongoing sanitation strike, and public trust in leadership was virtually non-existent. Gotham was not merely a backdrop, it was a suffocating atmosphere, grey, cold, and indifferent. A world that mirrored and magnified Arthur's inner desolation. In such a place, the possibility of care or belonging seemed as distant as light in an abandoned tunnel. His thrownness is not simply environmental, it is revealed through his moods. His laughter, involuntary and misunderstood, is a reaction towards the world that feels increasingly hostile and absurd. This laughter is not joy but fracture. He flees into fantasies, inauthentic possibilities of romance, fame, and parental recognition. These are not whimsical dreams, they are expressions of his entanglement with Das Man, that they self, as he seeks to define himself in relation to what others say he should be. Arthur is thrown into the world with no say in matter, yet burdened with the responsibility of making sense of it. Tragically, he cannot make sense of it. He is verricht. His being is not grounded in a stable social structure, nor in a secure identity. His origins are obscured, his history rewritten, and even his body, with its uncontrollable laughter, fails to be an ally. In this way, his thrownness is not merely an abstract concept, but a lived embodied despair. The moment he begins to act, to project himself, even through violence, he paradoxically enacts the freedom that thrownness always contained. Yet this freedom is tragic. It is not the freedom of authentic being, but the desperate expression of someone no longer willing to evade the truth of his existence. Arthur is not free in the ordinary sense, but in the stark revelation of his own groundlessness, he becomes what Heidegger called a preserver of the throne projection, one who carries his thrownness forward, even into madness. His story is not a warning about individual pathology, but about what happens when a human being is thrown into a world that refuses to offer any ground upon which to stand. Next, existential, being with. Arthur's alienation in Joker also demonstrates a deep fracture in the actualization of existential structure of being with. Heidegger reminds us that we are always already with others, that Dasein is always being in a shared world. Arthur is, in this sense, never simply alone. His loneliness is only possible because he is being with others in the most painful way, alone in the crowd. His entire existence is permitted by the pain of being fundamentally misunderstood, unseen, and unwelcomed within the midveld. He lives with his mother, a relationship that at first glance suggests intimacy, but is revealed to be one of mutual delusion and concealment. He imagines romantic connection with Sophie, friendship with his coworkers, and recognition from Mary Franklin. Each of these imagined relationships is a desperate projection toward being with, toward finding an other who sees him as a person. But each collapses under the weight of facticity. None of them are real. And those who are real, like Randall or his boss, do not meet him with solicitude, Fürsorge, but with suspicion, betrayal, and dismissal. Arthur is surrounded by others, yet remains unaccompanied. The everyday solicitude that could manifest as care, recognition, or even consideration is absent. Instead, he encounters others as obstacles or threats. He is treated as present at hand, as a malfunctioning object, rather than as a being in the world with others. The deficient modes of solicitude, neglect, disregard, and avoidance dominate Arthur's social space. In the absence of authentic being with, Arthur fragments. His hallucinations are not just mental instability, they are existential compensations for the lack of shared world. He conjures a community in which he can be with in ways the actual world denies him, but these are not sustainable. As they fall apart, he is driven farther into isolation. Heidegger speaks of the highest form of solicitude, that which leaps ahead in order to return the other's care to them authentically. Arthur never receives this. No one leaps ahead for him. Instead, they leap away. He is left with unbearable task of shouldering a world that does not want him, with others who refuse to be with him. The tragedy is not simply that he is unloved, it is that he was never truly seen. What is worth mentioning is that, despite it all, Arthur's being towards others in the early part of the film is marked by a quiet, often clumsy gentleness. He tries to make a young boy smile on the bus, reaching out not with force, but with a longing to connect. At home, he cares tenderly for his mother, bathing her, feeding her, and listening to her stories with patience. These gestures reflect a basic, vulnerable openness towards others, a desire not only to be seen, but to share space meaningfully. It is only then, as his world collapses under the weight of humiliation, abandonment, and systemic failure, that his orientation towards others shifts dramatically. The gentle openness curdles into resentment, and the wish to be with transform into a readiness to strike against. Rejected by the world, Arthur's being with fractures into violence, not because he was born cruel or pathological, but because every hand he reached for withdrew, leaving him to face existence alone. Next, existential sorge. At the heart of Arthur's flag tragic trajectory lies the existential structure of sorge, of care, which Heidegger identifies as the fundamental character of Dasein. Dasein is care, and it means to be ahead of oneself, to already be in a world and to be amidst things and others. Arthur's existence in Joker is marked by this structure in both its absence and distortion. In his everyday life, Arthur projects possibilities. He wants to become a stand-up comedian, to be recognized, to find love, to make his mother proud. These are expressions of care. He is ahead of himself, reaching toward a future in which he might be whole. But the world he is thrown into thwarts these projections at every turn. The practical possibilities offered to him, work, save, dignity, relationship, are structurally blocked. The actualization of his care is never allowed to unfold. This failure is not just circumstantial, it is existential. He encounters the world with care, but the world refuses to care for him in return. His caring becomes distorted. Care becomes desperation, even obsession. He still exists as care, but it is care imploding under the impossibility of fulfillment. Arthur's concern for the world is evident in his jobs, routines, and even his politeness. But he is not met with the same readiness to hand. Rather than enabling his existence, the world resists it. His social relationships reveal even more. He experiences no solicitude, no fürsorge that would help him carry his care, to become transparent to himself through others. Instead, those around him dominate or ignore him. Care, in its most authentic sense, the mutual recognition of existential projection, is denied. As his projected possibilities collapse, his care turns. He no longer reaches outward. His being ahead of itself and possibility transforms into fixation. The breakdown of temporality that Heidegger sees at the heart of care is visible in Arthur. His future disintegrates, his past is revealed as a lie, and his present becomes a site of violent emergence. But even in madness, Arthur remains care. The becoming of Joker is not abandonment of care, but its mutation into something raw, fractured, and uncontainable. Joker is still Dasein, still a being for whom being is at issue. But the issue now erupts from the abyss. Last, existential, attunement, Stimmung. Arthur Fleck's attunement, his fundamental way of being in the world, is revealed through the deep melancholy and alienation that pervade his every encounter. Heidegger describes attunement not as a subjective emotional state, but as the existential structure through which Dasein finds itself thrown into the world. Arthur's attunement is not simply sadness or despair. It is an effective disclosure of his world as fundamentally broken, threatening, and closed. This mood is not chosen. It descends on Arthur as part of his thrownness. His laughter, involuntary and inappropriate, is an attunement in itself. It is not merely a symptom or illness, but a pre-reflective, affective expression of his estranged relationship to the world. The laughter disrupts every attempt at orientation. He is unable to enter shared space, the bus, the stage, the therapist's office, without that attunement betraying him. Heidegger writes that attunements reveal both that we are now and how we are. In Arthur's case, attunement discloses the burdensome of existence as something handed over to him, something he must endure without support. The world appears not as open or inviting, but as mocking, cold, and inaccessible. Even when his fantasies of being loved, being seen, those fantasies are tinted with yearning born from attunement to lack. His hallucinations of Sophie's affection are structured not by hope, but by the pain of hope's absence. Attunement determines not only Arthur's experience of beings within the world, others, spaces, institutions, but also the very tone of existence itself. The city, grey and crumbling, mirrors his inner disposition. The walls of his apartment close in. The laughter of others is always aimed at him, never with him. The ambient attunement of his life is one of rejection and dislocation. Heidegger reminds us that some attunements, such as angst, open us not to a particular being, but to the whole of our situation. Arthur's despair deepens into this kind of basic attunement. His madness is not localized. It becomes an attunement encounter with existence as absurd and unsparing. And within that, he encounters moments of eerie clarity, the dance in the bathroom, the joy before going to marry Franklin Shaw. These two are attunements, ones that oscillate between destruction and becoming. Aletheia and Eros, truth and love in the therapeutic encounter with Arthur Fleck. Arthur Fleck is not merely a man slipping into madness. He is a human being profoundly lost in the concealment of his own truth. His tragedy is not only psychological or social, but existential. A Daseinanalytic perspective rooted in Heidegger's understanding of aletheia, truth and concealment, opens a radically different path for encountering someone like Arthur. Not to fix him, not to diagnose or classify, but to allow his being to show itself in its own time and form. Dasein's analysis does not begin with pathology. It begins with presence. The therapist does not ask what is wrong with you, but rather what is right with you, as Miles uses to say. Dasein analyst listens for how the truth of a person's being reveals itself moment by moment. Truth here is not correspondence to fact, but an event, the slow, often painful emergence of what has long remained hidden. Arthur's suffering was never simply a set of symptoms. It was a silent scream, a fracture in his being in the world that demanded a different kind of listening. In such a frame, Dasein analysis becomes not a method applied to a disorder, but a shared space in which truth can happen, a truth happening, as Hans-Dieter Foster named it in Athens in 2023. Arthur's cry laughter, his fantasies, his hallucinations, all would be welcomed as expressions of a deeper structure breaking down. His psychosis would not be seen as a failure of the mind, but as the collapse of existential foundations. His world, the world, his possibilities, choked by abandonment. He was reaching, even in madness, for voice, for recognition, for love, and no one reached back. This is where therapeutic eros becomes essential, a concept well known among Dasein analysts around the world. Originally coined by Alberto Seguin, it was later taken up by Medard Boss and further developed and popularized by Mais Groth, Charlotte Eigner, and many others. Eros, in the existential therapeutic sense, is not a romantic desire, but courageous movement toward the other. It is openness, a devoted presence, a radical willingness to be with the other, not to analyze, not to intervene, but to witness. In the loving gaze of therapeutic Eros, a person is not treated as a case to be solved, but as a mystery to be met. It is this kind of love that could have offered Arthur the possibility of becoming visible, not to the world, but to himself. A therapist grounded in Eros would not recoil from Arthur's fragmentation. They would not rush to interpret his violence or hallucinations, but sit beside them in the dark. In the space of attuned not knowing, something sacred could begin, the truth of Arthur's being, his frownness, his distorted care, his broken being with, might have slowly come into the light. Even his laughter could be transformed from symptom to symbol, a strange, painful language of survival. Without such a space, Arthur withdrew into the capsule of the self, a lonely fortress built of trauma and confusion. The capsule protected him, but also isolated. It silenced. And when the silence grows unbearable, it either implodes or erupts. Had Arthur encountered someone who could have remained with him, not fixing, not interpreting, but loving him with the clarity and strength of Eros, the violence might have been averted, not through control, but through unconcealment. Daseinanalysis offers not just therapy, but sanctuary. A sanctuary for truth, and a sanctuary for love. A love and love, not sentimentality, not technique, but existential devotion becomes the force that holds open the space for being to appear. Arthur needed truth, but truth cannot be demanded. It must be invited. It arrives, if it arrives at all, only in the presence of love. I would like to emphasize that Daseinanalysis is not merely a therapeutic approach. It is a way of life, a way of being in the world. It invites us to dwell more openly, more attentively, more lovingly with one another. If this mode of being were truly shared among people in our communities, much of what we now call therapy might no longer be necessary. Joker once said, "People are so awful that anyone can become mad because of it." But this, I believe, can be changed. When we live analytically, when we truly see each other, when we listen without rushing and respond with presence rather than strategy, we can draw people back from the verdict edge, back from that displaced place where being can no longer find ground. We can prevent injustice, loneliness, and perhaps even madness. Who knows, maybe in the deepest sense, we could even stop wars. I truly believe this. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Really inspiring. I've seen that for the first time at FDA meeting, and I don't know, this time was even deeper. I don't know, creates an atmosphere of intimacy with the movie. I think it was a great strategy, to use the movie to relate to the Daseinsanalysis approach to madness. Really, really great. I don't know if you want to take a pause, 5 minutes, and then we can start to see if people have questions. I don't know what you guys think. We can take like 5 minutes pause, and then we can proceed with questions. That's okay?
Sounds like a plan to me.
Okay. So we take like 5 minutes pause, and then we can rejoin. And you are you will be able to ask him questions direct to Rafał. Okay?
Okay.
See you in
Thank
5.
you. See you in 5.
Okay.
Bye.
There are so many ambiguities about this film, and also some details about the time and the setting and such that would you mind if I take 5 minutes to make a couple of comments on that?
Mais, I'll be more than happy if you take 45 minutes.
No, I'm going to lunch.
Yes, please. Your input is always very precious. And thank you for listening for the second time to this, Mais.
Well, it's a different setting, and as Roberto said, it bears listening to a second time. So, yeah.
I lost the first words Miles are saying. You have some comments about it, Miles?
Yes, just so that in case some haven't seen the film and might want to know a bit about this Gotham that was setting of the film of 6 years ago that Rafi has been looking at. Gotham is a nickname for New York. So, in particular with the Batman series, in which Joker first appears as a character, isn't it? And in these time in which it was set, I think may not be clear to everyone. It wasn't 2019, it was 1981, which means that, and that's the year that I moved to New York, to Gotham, by the way. And his age at that time is said to be early 30s, which is to say he's a baby boomer, and he'd be roughly my age at this point. So the context, I think, is important in view of what we assume happens to him at the end after he shoots Murray. He's arrested, he's taken away, but there's a crash because things are so confused and messed up in the city at that time. Things were that way. He's somehow seen as a hero by the public, briefly. And then we have the impression that also he's now taken to a psychiatric hospital, the same one that his mother had been in, the mother with whom he's been living since it happened that he was put up for adoption, but then somehow got back in to a situation where he lives with her. So all of these ambiguities about how did this happen, and they're living in squalor, and they're living in an environment where both of these, the mother and the let the boy be abused by whoever was the father, that's not clear, and her other boyfriends and such. How they got back together again and what sort of relationship continues with them. So just in case some hadn't picked up on some of those details, I thought perhaps it was worth pointing out. So those are my comments, but here are my questions then to Rafał. If he's roughly mid 30 something, 32, 33, 34, that's I guess. Why did this crisis occur at that age? That's one question. And the second one would be, given the perspective that you've taken, Dasein-analytic perspective that you've taken, how do you understand what today in psychotherapy is a very important topic, trauma? Because we're assuming that this fellow experienced a good deal of physical trauma and so-called emotional trauma from infancy on through toddler and early childhood, all of this, again, being quite ambiguous, how he got away from mama and back to mama, and what happened in all those years up to the year that we see him now. And then the third question is, and the title of your paper is the word madness. And so from a Dasein-analytic perspective, I'd like to know what you understand by that term, both in 1981 and in 2025.
Okay, thank you very much. I try to answer these questions. Maybe first about trauma. I don't really, I'm not a huge fan of trauma concept. And I think that nowadays in psychotherapy, trauma is much more connected to what happens in psychotherapy offices, more than in people's lives, because nowadays psychotherapy has become a medicalized industry. And I'm not a very big fan of it. And I think that treating people according to some sort of protocol can be traumatic even for people who come for help. And of course, I'm a psychologist, and I was brought up with the shell shock, PTSD experiences that are larger than person capability to cope with. But I don't think I'm using this concept trauma in my everyday practice. I'm rather speaking of experiences or experiencing the world and others, and maybe applying some adjective to this. But trauma is not the word that I use often, because some events can be traumatic for person A and can be transformative for person B in a positive way. So I'm not an expert on trauma. I think that meeting people with protocol in head, meeting people in organized industrial psychotherapy fashion, that intervening, that prescribing drugs as candies, this is all what associates me with trauma and psychotherapy nowadays. So this may not be a popular view. I know that trauma is a big concept today, and everybody is speaking about trauma, and that there are different waves of fashions in psychology and psychotherapy, and every 5 years period has its own fashion, and also tons of books and new concepts on trauma, on ADHD, on eating disorders, etc. I think we can talk of experiences and experiencing the world without such a words. But what do you say, Miles? Is the response to your question?
Yeah. So, what about his madness, and what about the timing of his crisis?
Okay. As for madness, for me, madness is being verrückt, being unable to make sense of the world. If a person cannot make sense of his world, then we could call him mad, I believe, or he can feel out of place, displaced, and that's the closest. If somebody can make sense out of his existence, then he is sane for me. If he cannot make sense out of his existence, then maybe there is some madness. Again, in general, I would go into the direction of resigning from concepts such as health and madness. I think they are good for certain purposes, but not exactly for therapeutic purposes. Of course, I would like your comment on my answers, Miles. And as for the third one, I don't think you're asking why is it often that crisis happens at this age of 30?
Well, why in this particular case do you think, in this particular man's life, it happened at this point, rather late, right? Since most of these kinds of so-called break happen earlier in teen years, for example.
I could hallucinate on this and elaborate with my hallucinations, but the truth is that I don't know. I think it's fate. There was some poet who said that love is a choice of fate. It was some American poet, I would say, that fate chooses if we fell in love or not. And maybe this was also fate, that certain circumstances happened at this particular time in his life. But the real answer is, I don't know. And to add maybe to your next question, I don't believe in developmental stages. There are nice descriptions like Erikson developmental stages, but they're nice, they are neat, they are some kind of a sexy because you can measure them, you can use them, but I don't believe they apply to every human being, because each human being is unique, and this is not something trivial, but deep truth that I believe in.
Nice. Thank you, Miles, for your question, and Rafał for your replies. I don't know if anybody has some questions. If you don't feel comfortable to make it out loud, you can write in the chat and I can make to Rafi. I don't know, Rafi, about this trauma topic. I don't know if you know Peter Sloterdijk. Do you know Peter Sloterdijk?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about how would you think that he can add to your comments about this environment and being with? Do you think that he has something to add, or no?
We would have to ask him directly.
Yeah, but I mean, like on this catastrophe environment, you know, like I got the feeling that Arthur are in this catastrophe environment, that people don't recognize him, don't, you know, like are not being kind with him. I don't know if you relate trauma with catastrophe.
I think that you can feel bad if people behave cruel to you or without giving you attention or giving you recognition. And if we live in a very technical, very distant from each other era, that can be disturbing. I think times are. I'm curious. How is it in New York? How is it in Brazil or other countries? Do you think that the world around you, the environment, is supporting, loving, or distancing from other people? Are there deep differences between level of life among people? What do you see on the street when you pass other people?
Here in Brazil, you have the colonial theories. You know, it's a phenomenology called the colonial theories. They are struggling to separate the roots from Europe thinking and trying to create a new phenomenology based on the social aspect from Brazil. You know, because when you're talking about this, I was thinking about social difference. You know, like people that are not allowed to, live their lives. They are not allowed. They are allowed, but they don't, have plenty of opportunities to live. And we are thinking about this because before Miles mentioned that it's like in late 80s that movie take places. I had the feeling that I was watching a movie about New York 2020, you know, and when he mentioned Big Boomer, it made a lot of sense because people are, you know, like social. This creates an impact on how people deal with others, you know, like trying to prevent their death and stocking food and always alert, you know, about bombs that can fall from the skies. I know that this is a different kind of world, you know, horizon of world that people are taking places, and I think that this can really relate to the Arthur madness, you know, in this sense, you know, of madness. If we are using this term. But I have a question. I don't know if Miles has something to add because he opens the mic. Miles, are you okay? Yeah. And
I just wanted to add it was the early 1980s, not the late 1980s, and in 1981. And just a quick comment. I don't want to monopolize this, but just a quick comment. That was a sort of trick question to Rafi about why at the age of 32 or 33 did this happen to this sensitive young adult. And I think the answer is that it wasn't his age, but it was 1981. In other words, the setting of the film shows the garbage piled up, the garbage strike here, conflict with the police, there was all sorts of racial tension. It was a dangerous city. I was mugged second year I was here, even in a fairly nice neighborhood. That was very common. There was big change then that followed, but it was, I would say, the social situation at that time which precipitated this reaction. And of course, he kills someone who represents that indifference. When they have their little chat in the clip that Rafi presented, he's telling, like, see, this is all a show. You're great for the ratings. it's TV. In other words, it just adds to his understanding of how inauthentic life was between people in a big city in particular. And I would have had to ask how it was in Sao Paulo in 1981. I'd be interested to hear how it was, in London and Paris. I know a little bit better, but so I think it was the social situation and what young van den Berg called a sociosis, which had replaced identifying the source of this kind of response somehow in the psyche of an individual, but rather in the world in which or in the world as which his Dasein finds a home. And perhaps just quickly to add that in that time and in that era, it was very difficult for people and to say whether they felt at home anymore in the big urban centers, such as New York, LA, Sao Paulo, and I've been there, and that's a big urban center, even more traffic than New York, which surprised me when I saw it too. So just that quick comment, and then I'll leave it to others to talk. By the way, I don't believe that there is such a thing as madness. I think this is a construct that emerged approximately the 17th century in Europe, and very much a Western notion. But that's another discussion.
But Mais, thank you. May I ask you kind of a more private question? Has Gotham City changed a lot throughout your life? Do you enjoy living with it, or are there piles of garbage, symbolic or real, still?
No, it's in the 80s that things changed, and in the 90s things changed. Everything seemed to be improving until 9/11. Which is 2001, and so in the last 25 years, New York has become a police state. Cameras are on every corner, policemen are found everywhere. Everything that one does in a supermarket or in a pharmacy or on the street is on tape. It's monitored. There are cameras on every corner. So things are quieter. It's safer in that sense than it was when people were roaming about. But there are lots of arrests, lots of people are taken into custody. So it's a quiet, tense police state. And the other element, of course, is the isolation of individuals in their cell phones, so that you can see people walking down the street, not talking to their babies, but talking to their cell phones, or couples sitting in a cafe looking into their cell phones rather than into each other's eyes, and talking. So it's quieter in the sense that people are absorbed by the virtuality rather than the actuality. That's how it's changed.
From São Paulo and from Brazil, we on the 80s we were under dictatorship that lasted until 85. I can point a movie that you guys can watch, the ones that wins the Oscars, last Oscars, still here. It's not from the 80s, but it's from the 70s, and I think that's a great picture of how Brazil was back in the 80s, and a lot of not liberty, a lot of martial and military dictatorship, and not allowing people to be out in the street at night, not having work, and not free at all. So I don't know this creates like a lot of people with madness, but I'm sure creates a lot of anger, and I'm happy that it ends in 85, and now we have a democracy and more free of speech and more rights to be ourselves, you know. And I think that's pretty much how Brazil was in the 80s. How about Poland, Rafał?
Poland is now a very divided country, very sort of surreal, because ex-gangster, ex-criminal won the presidential elections, and we have a sort of tensed situation here. That's, I would say, times are rather tough, and people are not very nice towards each other. And we've gone through communism and then wild capitalism that was just different, wasn't better than communism, I would say. And now we are somewhere between democracy and question mark. Yes.
This can create a lot of I don't know, anger and violence that probably relate to the art or violence, you know. And yeah, I think that where you are and what time it is, you know, like on the if it 80s, 20s, or you know, and it can create a lot of experience, you know, different experience. I have a question, Rafał, and I've mentioned you that your presentation is really straightforward. You know, like I like the movie, I like the points, I like the Eros, and but I'm more curious about your 20 years of experience as a psychologist and work as a practice. What led you to choose Daseinsanalysis as your home? Was there a particular encounter, an author, or clinical experience that shaped this direction?
Oh, one is currently present here with us. It's mais growth, that's responsible for me becoming a design analyst in training, as I'm not a design analyst yet. I'm starting my 5th years of training, as it takes. And training is a terrible word, I would say path. Miles always says that we can train pets and cats and dogs and horses, but not a human being, and I fully agree. So my path is that I was first, I finished Gestalt Existential 4-year school and was working within this frame, and soon I started longing for some deeper understanding. So I started my psychoanalytic studies that were fantastic, apart from technique and assumptions about human nature and the lack of true contact and sort of violence, I would say, and interpreting and diagnosing not persons, not people, but patients. And that's a huge world of difference between a person that comes to see us and a patient that comes to see us, I would say. So I was working on my own, trying to join what I learned about existentialism from my Gestalt studies and taking the best from psychoanalytic world. And I was pretty sure that I will not join any formation, but soon I reached out to British Society of Existential Analysis and became a member, and they were organizing a seminar with Miles Groth and Tamas Fazekas about the renaissance of design analysis, which I attended, and that was something big for me. And we started exchanging letters with Miles and later on with Tamash, and they were so kind to invite me to participate in the school. What is happening till present day.
Nice. And you have a really strong background in psychoanalysis. How this relates to your work now as a design analyst? Do you think that you can, because when you are talking about Arthur Fleck, I was thinking about Winnicott, withholding concept. Do you think you can relate this to the Eros that you were talking about and the last part of your presentation?
I don't think so. What is left in me from psychoanalytic years is rather trying to unlearn psychoanalytic concepts, and what is left is a certain I'm okay with using the couch. For example, this is what I'm used to, and I just want to underline here that Daseinanalytic couch is so much different than a psychoanalytic couch. It's much more warm and much more present, the person in design analysis than in psychoanalysis. But in terms of concepts, I don't think there is much left in me from that years. And I think that therapeutic Eros is such a unique term, such a unique approach, that I don't think I would like to mix it with psychoanalytic stance. And it would be very hard for me to speak in terms of loving the patient from psychoanalytic perspective. I think this would be pathologized as something wrong, as a form of acting out or counter-transference or something wrong.
I like the comment that you put, that the culture difference is the atmosphere, the attunement, right?
It's very much different. I've spent more than 400 hours on psychoanalytic couch, and maybe just few of them were feelings of closeness or sort of intimacy.
Nice. I don't know if anybody has a question so far, because otherwise I'm gonna. Yeah, Ross? Yeah, sure.
First, thank you for sharing your knowledge, and I'm very happy about learning so much today. And I am curious to know, as you mentioned just briefly, about angst, and how important is it in the character, in the development? Does it reveal something? And I would like to know more, if you could be a bit more descriptive of angst in the character, please.
Thank you for your kind words and for your question.
Do you have some comments about angst in Arthur Fleck's case?
I need to meditate on this a little bit.
Okay. I have another question that I don't know if it changed the topic, too much, but I like to ask it anyway, because these seminars is a way for me personally to know more about who are presenting. And on your little text presentation, you mentioned sports. You mentioned triathlon and boxing as source of presence and resilience. In what ways does this embodied praxis influence your clinical listening or way of being with clients, Rafał?
let me first of all, I've been always doing sports. I was as a kiddo, I was living very close to the physical academium with lots of playgrounds, and I was spending my whole childhood there. And times were different. You could go into any classes with higher students and just ask them, "Can I join you?" And there was always they always said yes, of course. Here's the ball or a spare, or you can climb this wall. And nowadays it's all closed. There are gates and keys, and you have to write an official petition to do anything there. But within the time of my childhood, it was very open. And so I continued doing sport throughout my life. And I think that this physiological, biological part of us is a fundament on which our consciousness, and another term that I don't like, mental health, is based on. So I think it's very important for each of us to practice sports regularly, at least 1 hour per day. I think that's a good minimum. We are having a very sitting job. We don't walk in our job. We don't move. We don't pick up anything. We don't chase children in the kindergarten. So we sit still, and our bodies are frozen. And I think this is very terrible for our nervous system and for our minds. And so also, sport is a sort of meditation. It calms me very much when I'm running or swimming, some open water and the sea, or go on a biking trip somewhere long. It's really a meditation sort of experience. As for boxing, this is for fun. This is it's like boys' game. Boys like to punch and be punched from time to time. It's nothing serious. It's just for fun. And I'm not hiding this from the people that come to see me. I'm not having a psychoanalytic stance. I'm keeping my best racing bike in my office, so it's not exposed to sun or rain. So people see. It's like an elephant in the room. It's like the couch. I don't start talking about it often, but sometimes people ask about it, and I ask about their feelings and associations, and I'm not imposing anything, but sometimes they engage in sports more, but that's not my recommendation to patients. I don't recommend anything. So, but it is my belief that movement of the body is necessary. Does it answer your question?
Sure it does. And I don't know if it's related to this embody experience, but how do you perceive the virtual sessions? Do you practice on online sessions? Or just in person?
I suffer a lot when I have to do online session with somebody. I do it very seldom. If I agree to sessions online, this is only with people that have been to my office real, so to speak. There are some papers people try to argument that nowadays a body doesn't have to be there where the mind is. There are some even psychoanalytic papers by David and Jill Scharf on psychotherapy via telephone or online. But I'm not a fan of this. I think this is a part of a crisis that is now affecting psychotherapy, that it became so medicalized that it's being treated as a procedure that can be done through wires. So I know it exists. I know it will exist. I think it will lead to a more deep crisis of psychotherapy. I
Yeah.
don't encourage anyone to work this way.
Okay. And you have 20 years of experience, and I don't know how artificial intelligence are taking place in Poland.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it.
I absolutely love AI and psychotherapy mixture because it will increase the crisis and make nowadays contemporary therapy fall down and reach even more crisis. So I think AI is our ally.
Yeah.
Yes. I think there will be that there already is a huge crisis in psychotherapy, and AI will bring it more to light, because I don't think that psychotherapy will survive in the form that it is now. And I think that there is one person among us today that knows more about it and can predict more. But
Yeah.
but answering to it's Miles.
Yeah.
But answering to your question, Roberto, I love AI. I think it's doing great job. I've seen a commercial yesterday about AI therapeutic sessions. Only 62 zlotys per week. That makes about $10 or $12, $12 per therapy session, and they promise that you will experience a change within 3 weeks. You just have to fill in the seminar, the protocol to feed AI agent with data, and it will adjust to your specific needs. So I think this is brilliant.
Okay. How do you perceive the next 20 years in your career, Rafał, with the AI thing and the virtual sessions, and how do you see yourself for the next 20 years?
I'm not a part of it.
Yeah.
I'm not a part of it, and I don't want to be a part of it. I'm not. Yeah, dot. I don't think it needs to be put into more words. It's just not something that I would like to have anything in common. But I want to have in common a lot with people interested in existential thought and deeper work and presence and not diagnosing. And I have deep wish to connect and create, build with other people such spaces where we can meet differently and think freely out of this medical frame, out of this contemporary madness.
We are approaching the end of the seminar, and I don't know if Miles has something to add about AI. Do you have some comments? Gotham has changed. Gotham will change.
Yeah, very much is part of the scene, and I can only add one further absurdity. I met with someone who's here in New York and perhaps interested in design analysis, and he told me that some therapists are now texting messages back and forth to each other, which was really shocking. And so you don't even need to be on a screen virtually. You can just follow exchanges and text messages. And we both laughed a little bit about that. But evidently some therapists are doing it, and charging for each text message.
Wow.
Let's see what future reserves to us. Rafał, thank you again for being here today. I think that it was great. The atmosphere and the tournament that you create, which are reading, and the fact that you relate Joker movie with Daseinsanalysis make much sense. I think that people are going to enjoy this seminar, not now, but perhaps when they see the recording on YouTube. I don't know if you have any last words.
Thank you for being here, and thank you very much for being interested in not so much contemporary approach, and for your openness. That has been both a pleasure and a privilege to be here.
Thank you, Rafał. How people can reach you? By email, Instagram? Do you want to share with us?
Of course. Maybe I will share a screen for a moment and warmly, here is sharing a screen, and warmly invite you to the project that I, as a member of American Daseinanalytic Institute, am. Can you see Daseinflix?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a very fresh project, and among this is being on the screen. This will be quarterly viewing and discussing certain documentary or art movies. This is, of course, free of any charge. You are all welcome to join, and we will meet and talk and watch and discuss and feel and think. If you just type daseinflix.com, you will encounter this, and you can also reach out to me. Clicking in the footer, there's a red link.
Okay. Nice to hear about Daseinflix. I'm curious about it.
It's been officially approved by authorities yesterday.
Yeah, the authorities present. Okay. Nice to hear about this project. I'm really excited to share with everybody, and I'm more than happy to do this live with you guys today. And thank you, Rafał, for being here today, for being so kind with us from Brazil. And more than happy to do this with people from ADI. Thank you, Maya, for being here as well. Rosa, Gustavo, Claudia, Clayson, and all the other persons, Dalila. And yeah, I think that we can end here. Okay? Thank you, and see you in the next session. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Obrigado.
Obrigado. Bye-bye.